In the first half of 2025, the US dollar lost more value against other major currencies than it had in any 6-month stretch since 1973. Not since the year the gold standard collapsed has the dollar fallen this fast. That decline ended a 15-year winning streak that started back in 2010, and by early 2026, the dollar had slid to its weakest level since 2022. Morgan Stanley, one of the largest banks on the planet, put out a forecast warning the dollar could lose another 10% of its value by the end of this year. Now here's the part every single retirement abroad video on this platform, including some of ours, has been quietly ignoring. Every $1,500 a month number you've ever heard for retiring in Mexico, Portugal, Colombia, or the Philippines was calculated using an exchange rate. And exchange rates move. Your Social Security check is still $1,900. It hasn't changed. But what that $1,900 actually converts into in pesos, in euros, in Colombian pesos, that number has been quietly shifting under your feet for over a year now, and almost nobody's explaining what that actually does to your monthly budget. We're going to walk through exactly how this works, with real numbers from real currency moves over the past 18 months. And then we're going to show you something most retirement content completely skips. There are countries where this entire problem simply does not exist because they don't have their own floating currency at all. Stick around to number 1 because it's the country that's been quietly dollar immune for longer than almost any other place on Earth, and it's not the one you'd guess. Here's how we built this one. We pulled the actual US dollar index data, the DXY, tracking the greenback against a basket of major trading partner currencies going back through 2025 and into 2026. We compared forecasts from Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and JPMorgan because they don't all agree, and pretending they do would be dishonest. We looked at the actual peso, euro, and other currency moves against the dollar over the last year and a half, not estimates, not projections, the real recorded numbers. And then we identified which popular retirement countries have currencies that float freely with the market, and which ones don't, because that distinction is about to matter more than it has in decades. The math nobody's showing you. Before the countdown, let's make this concrete because the dollar is weak means nothing until you see it hit an actual budget. Say you moved abroad with a $1,500 monthly Social Security check and the local currency traded at 20 to the dollar. That gave you 30,000 units of local currency to live on every month. Now, say that currency strengthens by 20% against the dollar, not an extreme move. That's roughly what's happened to the Mexican peso over the past year. Your same $1,500 check now only converts into 24,000 units. Your income in dollars hasn't dropped by a single cent. Your actual buying power on the ground just took a 20% hit. Rent that used to take 8,000 pesos now effectively costs you more of your fixed dollar income to cover. That's not a hypothetical. That's the lived experience of thousands of American retirees in Mexico over the last 12 months. This is the risk nobody puts in the thumbnail. Now let's count down from the destinations most exposed to this problem to the ones where it simply cannot happen to you, structurally, by design. Number 5, Portugal, and really the entire Eurozone. We've covered Portugal's D7 visa and its EU safety net in other videos, and both of those things are still true and still valuable. But here's the side of the story that almost never gets mentioned. The euro has strengthened meaningfully against the dollar over the past year and a half, pulling back from even higher peaks but still sitting well above where it traded through most of 2024. That matters enormously for retirees, because Portugal's D7 visa threshold is set in euros, not dollars. When the euro was weaker, 920 euros a month was an easy number for a social security check to clear, with real room to spare. As the euro strengthens, that same 920 euros requirement costs more dollars to satisfy every single month, and so does every euro-denominated bill once you're actually living there. Rent in central Portugal, groceries, healthcare copays, all of it is priced in euros, and a strengthening euro means your fixed dollar income converts into fewer of them than it did a year ago. The numbers. A couple in central Portugal still budgets $1,500 to $2,200 a month, and that math still works for most retirees today. But it works with less margin than it did 18 months ago, and if the euro keeps climbing the way several major banks expect through 2026, that margin keeps shrinking without you doing anything wrong. The catch is the entire point of this entry. There is no fix for this inside Portugal. You can't negotiate your way around currency risk in a country whose currency you don't control. The verdict. Still a phenomenal destination on every other metric, but budget with a cushion, not a razor's edge, because the euro side of this equation is moving against you. Number 4 is the country every retirement channel, including ours, has praised for its cost of living, and it's also the clearest real-world example of this exact problem happening right now. Number 4, Mexico. This hurts to say, because Mexico's day-to-day cost of living is still genuinely remarkable. But the peso strengthened by roughly 23% against the dollar over the course of 2025 alone, one of the sharpest currency moves anywhere in the world tracked by major financial data providers. That's fantastic news if you're a Mexican worker earning in pesos. If you're an American retiree living on dollars and spending in pesos, it's the textbook version of the problem we just walked through. A furnished one-bedroom in Lake Chapala that ran $400 to $700 a year and a half ago is, in dollar terms, costing meaningfully more today to maintain the same peso rent, even if the landlord never raised the price once. Groceries, restaurant meals, everything priced in pesos quietly got more expensive for you specifically, the dollar holder, without a single local price tag changing. The numbers as they stand, a single retiree in the popular Lake Chapala area now needs closer to $1,500 to $1,900 a month to live the same lifestyle that cost meaningfully less in dollar terms before the peso's run. And remember, Mexico also raised its visa income requirements substantially in 2025 and 2026, switching to a new calculation method that now asks for closer to $4,400 a month at several consulates. Currency risk and visa risk are stacking on top of each other here at the same time. The catch is structural, not temporary. As long as Mexico's currency floats freely, this can happen again, in either direction, with no warning and no say from you. The verdict. Mexico's underlying value is still real, but treat every dollar cost number you see for Mexico right now as a moving target, not a fixed promise, because over the last year it genuinely has been one. Number 3 takes a different approach entirely. A block of small nations that decided decades ago to simply stop playing this game. Number 3. This one's a cluster, not a single country, and that's exactly the point. 70 to the US dollar since 1976, not approximately, not usually. Fixed by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank for 50 years running, through multiple US dollar bull markets and bear markets alike. What that means in plain terms, the entire currency erosion problem we just spent 2 entries explaining cannot happen to you here. 70 Eastern Caribbean dollars today, next month, and most likely 5 years from now, the same as it did decades ago. We've covered Dominica's cost of living in detail before. A single retiree living comfortably on $1,100 to $1,300 a month, rent in Roso running $300 to $500, and English as the official language across the entire chain since these were all British colonies. That number means exactly the same thing in real terms this year as it did last year and the year before that, currency-wise, because the peg simply doesn't move. The catch, this currency stability doesn't cancel out the other honest risks we've flagged before: hurricane exposure across the entire chain, limited direct flights from the US, and infrastructure that can be inconsistent outside the main towns. A fixed exchange rate protects your purchasing power. It does not protect your roof in a Category 5 storm. The verdict, if dollar volatility specifically is what's keeping you up at night, a 50-year-old currency peg is about as close to a guarantee as international finance gets. Just budget separately for the hurricane risk that comes with it. Number 2, eliminated the question entirely over 2 decades ago by ripping out its own currency and replacing it with the dollar outright. Number 2, Ecuador. In the year 2000, after a brutal banking and currency crisis, Ecuador made a decision most countries never make. It abolished its own currency entirely and adopted the US dollar as its sole official legal tender. Not a peg, not a managed band. The actual US dollar, printed by the US Treasury, is the cash in people's wallets in Cuenca and Quito today. This means something very specific for the anxiety driving this whole video. There is no exchange rate to track in Ecuador because there is no exchange to do. Every price tag, every rent receipt, every grocery total is already in dollars. The Morgan Stanley forecast, the DXY level, the Fed's rate decisions, none of it touches your day-to-day cost of living in Ecuador because your day-to-day cost of living was never measured in anything else. The numbers. Unaffected by anything happening in the currency markets right now, a furnished one-bedroom in Cuenca runs $400 to $1,000. A full restaurant meal costs $3 to $6, and most American retirees report living comfortably on $1,200 to $1,800 a month. Ecuador's Jubilado pension visa requires $1,446 a month in 2026, comfortably cleared by the average Social Security check, with healthcare through the public IESS system running about $85 a month. The catch: dollarization removes currency risk, but it doesn't remove monetary policy risk entirely, because Ecuador has no central bank lever of its own to pull if the US economy sneezes. Cuenca's 8,000-foot elevation is also a real medical consideration worth a conversation with your doctor before you commit. And some coastal Ecuadorian cities have seen rising crime in recent years, even as Cuenca itself stays comparatively calm. The verdict? Total immunity from the exact problem this video is about, paired with some of the lowest costs on this entire channel. Ecuador solved the currency question by simply refusing to have a currency of its own. And now, number 1. A country that solved this problem before most of the others on this list even existed as we know them today. Number 1. Panama. Ecuador adopted the dollar in 2000 after a crisis forced its hand. Panama has been doing this since 1904, longer than the Federal Reserve itself has existed, longer than almost any other country on Earth has run on US currency without interruption. The US dollar circulates as legal tender alongside Panama's own Balboa coins, at a fixed 1-to-1 rate that has never once moved in over 120 years. That's the headline for this video specifically. Whatever the DXY does this week, whatever Morgan Stanley revises its forecast to next quarter, your dollar buys exactly 1 Balboa's worth of goods in Panama today, and it will tomorrow, because the two currencies are mechanically locked together at parity, by design, for more than a century running. Layer onto that the pensionado visa, requiring just $1,000 a month in lifetime pension income. Social Security qualifies instantly, and you receive full permanent residency immediately, not after years of renewal cycles. Law 6 adds legally mandated discounts on medicine, restaurants, and utilities specifically for retirees. A furnished place near the beach in Coronado or up in the mountain town of Boquete runs $300 to $500 a month, and a single retiree lives well, not barely, on $1,000 to $1,400. The catch: Panama City itself is priced more like an international financial hub than a Central American retirement town, so don't budget Panama City costs and expect a beach town lifestyle. The rainy season, roughly May through December, brings serious downpours, and Boquete and Coronado are getting discovered fast enough that prices are climbing year over year, currency stability aside. The verdict: the lowest visa threshold on this list, the fastest path to permanent legal status, and a currency arrangement that has now outlasted multiple full dollar bull markets and bear markets without budging once. If the entire premise of this video worries you, Panama is the closest thing to simply opting out of the worry altogether. Here's the honest summary. Portugal and the broader Eurozone are genuinely vulnerable to exactly the math we walked through. A strengthening euro quietly eating into a fixed dollar budget with no warning. Mexico is living through this right now, in real time, with a peso that gained roughly 23% against the dollar in a single year. The Eastern Caribbean nations sidestep the entire problem with a 50-year-old currency peg that simply doesn't move. Ecuador eliminated the question by adopting the dollar outright back in 2000. And Panama has been immune to this exact anxiety since 1904, longer than almost any economic institution currently making headlines about the dollar's direction. Here's the bigger point underneath all of it. Every major bank, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, JPMorgan, agrees the dollar is likely to end 2026 weaker than where it started, even though they disagree on exactly how much and exactly when. That's not a reason to panic. It's a reason to ask one specific question before you commit to any country. Does my monthly budget there depend on an exchange rate that can move without my permission, or doesn't it? For some of the most popular retirement destinations on this entire platform, the honest answer is yes, it does. For a handful of others, the answer has been no for decades, and that distinction is worth more than almost any other line item in your retirement plan right now. We've also broken down which countries are currently the safest given everything happening geopolitically this year, separate from the currency question entirely. If you're weighing more than one risk factor at once, which most people seriously considering this move actually are, that video is sitting right there on your screen.